So, well, okay, finally went in the lead. No shield these or not. Yes, okay. Finally, attack fall in my favor. Ready? Oh, what up, checks? Oh my gosh, another one? Oh, they have muddy water too. Oh, okay. I get attack drop too, but that's fine. Why were they holding on to the muddy water? That doesn't make too much sense in my opinion. Oh my gosh, we both get double debuffed? What is going on? Do they shield? They don't shield again, I think. Oh, they double shield? Really? Alright. I'm coming in with, no way. I still live it? Oh, man. What a mirror match. They should have thrown their bunny waters earlier, I think. Hey everyone, I hope Little Jungle Cup or Master League is treating you well. I personally mostly been playing Little Jungle Cup, and if you tune into my streams, you'll actually have seen this team over a week ago. So if you do want to keep up with my teams as I'm building them, definitely check out my streams because sometimes you'll often get an early access reveal to some of these teams. And this team almost brought me all the way up to Legend, and hopefully I'll be able to hit Legend with this team before the rotation's over. So the team I'm running is G-Fist with Ducklett and Drifloon in the back. Definitely keep in mind of the movesets on the screen right here because they do play a critical role in the various matchups that you're about to see. G-Fist is definitely one of the harder ones to get under 500 CP, so if you don't have one, Swinub is actually a very solid substitute for it. They both have similar weaknesses and they both have similar coverages as well. Before we get into the battles, a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who've been supporting my content creation. If you would also like to have early access to some of my strategies and lineups, feel free to sign up in the link down below. So, against a Ducklett lead, obviously if it's running Wing Attack, it's definitely a favorable matchup. I'm showcasing one with Water Gun, just because it's a little bit harder for matchup. But what I like to do is drop a Rock Slide with the G-Fist and then swap to my own Ducklett. Sometimes they throw a move, sometimes they swap right out. But because they shielded once, they might shield again and just go down 2 shields right off the bat, or they may just let it go. But anyway, so they decided to shield right here. Not having Flashkin makes this matchup a little bit harder, but because it was already weakened by the Ducklett, it made the matchup a little bit better here. And then shield advantage, Drifloon usually wins quite a few matchups, so it's going to do quite well here, and my opponent is going to concede. Now, the reason why I'm running this moveset is for a few reasons. Earthquake, not the most useful moveset, because everything's so glassy in Little Cup already. You don't really need that hard-hitting nuke. A lot of times, stuff like even Muddy Water does quite well against things that Earthquake is usually good at, or Rock Slide as well for neutral. Rock Slide is a pretty much must for all the flyers, for the various bugs, etc. And for some okay neutral damage too. Obviously it doesn't have stab, so it's not as good as Earthquake, but it's pretty quick to get to. Flash Cannon is an option for all the Cottonees, but my main reason for Muddy Water is really to shore up the matchup against G-Fist Mirrors as well as Swinubs. So against this opponent right here, obviously not having lead matchup against Wooper is pretty tough, but Drifloon is a hard wall to Wooper. Pretty much every one of its moves are resisted by quite a bit, and so you could just farm this straight down, especially once it's debuffed. And then my opponent here is going to come in with their Skarmory, and they no shield, and that's going to be GG's. All right. Skrelp, a fairly tough one. That neutral water gun damage starts to really add up against Drifloon. Very good against G-Fisk, and then also still has some play against what do you call it? The Ducklett as well, if it lands the Sludge Bomb. Alright, so again, my opponent going down 2 shields. What I like to do is drop a Rock Slide first because nothing really hard beats the Skrelp on this team, so you kind of need to tag team it. And most of the time, they will shield that Rock Slide, or you put it in a very comfortable spot for you to take out your opponent's remaining mons. And then here, my opponent is going to try to catch a move on their Skrelp. I'm going to overfarm it a little bit first, and then still with the shield remaining, I should be able to get to Spray Bird. So the good news about this team is that you're able to spam out quite a few charge moves and really grab shields, which makes it very good for your backline because you have the backline Shadow Ball nuke and you also have the backline Brave Bird nuke. And between those two moves, you have quite a bit of advantage. Alright, so this is not a great matchup here. My opponent does win switch and they win counter swap too. Really great catch by them to catch that Brave Bird. But here's the thing, G-Fisk does quite well against Vigoroth if it lands in the Rock Slide. So I'm going to farm up to 100 energy, throw the Muddy Water, and then start throwing Rock Slides at this Vigoroth. Chances are, I'm just going to bait. Most Vigoroth still shield this because the Rock Slide does quite a bit of damage. And then now able to get to an Icy Wind and grab that last shield from the Altaria. I'm going to shield here and then go for another Icy Wind here. This Vigoroth has to dump its energy to take out this Drifloon. So this should be fairly energy dry, although they do get a few counters there. But I do get this Rock Slide first and able to take out the Vigoroth. So in that situation, did not have lead, did not have counter swap, had a more neutral matchup in the back end, but still able to kind of outmaneuver the opponent there. Just because those neutral Rock Slides are just very deadly against even the Vigoroth in this meta because of how glassy it is. Alright, so Chansey leads. These are actually quite nice because you can farm them to 100 energy, just dip out, right? Obviously, without Earthquake or Flash Cannon, this matchup is a little bit tougher for G-Fisk, so I like to rather tackle it with Drifloon if I have the opportunity. It does get a little bit tricky if they have a G-Fisk counter in the back, but usually G-Fisk with a lot of energy is pretty good. Except for stuff like the Mud Boys, like Wooper, Barboach. They're just very bulky, and then without Earthquake, it just doesn't do nearly as much with Muddy Water. Alright, so just going to town on these debuffs here. The good news is against these Chansey, you're resisting all of their fast moves as well, so it's not terrible. Even though it is very, very bulky. And then I'm trying to hex it down or just farm up to swap outs. But instead, I get up to, 100 energy. Here comes a Vigoroth. Again, going for those Muddy Water baits. They do quite a bit of damage. Going for the Rock Slide now, and then they do shields. Able to hopefully grab a shield here. And then they have to throw a move eventually. So they do throw a move here. And then I spam the Icy Wind, having them back-to-back. And, able to finish off the Vigoroth. I forgot I actually did mud shot down the Chansey earlier. Alright, so Skrelp counter swaps. Same deal as if you had to lead, except you have a slight advantage. If they counter swap in, is you get to land the Rock Slide, and then I go straight for the Shadow Ball here. Now here's the thing, if they shields are down for them. Now you come in with Ducklett, and that Ducklett's going to one-shot the Altaria here. With the Brave Bird. So they actually swap in their Altaria right here. So that's actually kind of nice. So I can save the energy on my Ducklett. And my guess is they probably have 2 checks to G-Fisk in the back if they have a Altaria in the lead. So let's see what they come in with. Yep, and so here comes Cottonee. Soft check to G-Fisk. But getting one shot and then able to finish off the Skrelp here with Air Slash Wing Attack and Bow Beam. So again, if you grab both shields from your opponents with this team, the backline has a lot of play. Alright, so here's a weird one too. Anytime you see opponents staying in a matchup that they probably shouldn't, it's probably because they're kind of weak to the G-Fisk as well. So that's why I decided to shield it, especially because it was very likely possibly Brave Bird based on the counts, and that still does quite a bit of damage. Again, little cup, everything's pretty glassy, even G-Fisk, even though everything's neutral. So able to bait out shields on the Dino there, so it's forced to throw a little bit sooner. And now I have a very sizable advantage here. My opponent doesn't know it yet, but let's see if I land the Rock Slide. If not, they probably concede at that point once they see the Drifloon. Drifloon, the hardest wall to Vigoroth in the meta, so definitely very, very strong against a very common Pokemon. Wooper as well, very strong multi-Wooper. So Drifloon, even though it's not ranked the highest in this meta on PV Poke, it's still very, very strong. All right, so against Cottonees, usually I swap out here, but my opponent actually swaps out themselves. Now this is where it gets tricky. I don't really have a great check for G-Fist besides the mirror. Got some weird mutual lag there, which is not ideal, but I do get to another Muddy Water. And now I'm going to bring in my Ducklett here. Ducklett could tank these rock slides a little bit better than the Drifloon. And then Drifloon also is resisting all of Cottonee's charge moves, so that's not so bad. And then my opponent does throw a Body Slam here. I'm going to go straight for that nuke. If I grab that shield, great. If they no shield, that's fine. And then now, able to Hex Sound the Cottonee, and they can see the match right here. Now, I ran into this team a few times. I made the mistake of staying in the lead a little too long. You know, Bastion double Razor Leaf, pretty common line in Open Great League. You know, someone was trying to be creative here and decided to go Onix instead of Bastion with 2 Razor Leafers as well. But G-Fist in the lead, very, very favorable. I also didn't wait my clock out, knowing that I could lock this Onix in there for a little bit longer. See, my opponent does shield. They don't shield the Oddish, and this is going to be GG's for sure. Definitely need to shield the Razor Leafers in those scenarios. Yeah, with G-Fist in the lead and 2 flyers in the back, usually this should be a win as long as you're fast on the swaps. If you stay in a little too long against the Razor Leafers, which I did a few times, you end up losing that match actually. So definitely something to watch out for. Skorupi, pretty common in the meta. Technically all 3 things have play against it. All 3 things can pretty much beat it. So yeah, not terrible to see in any lineup. As you can see here, I'm not going to swap out just so I could do maximum damage here, and then I actually go for the wing attack down, knowing that they probably don't bring Skorupi back in, and then it actually is a Dino, which is pretty nice. I am going to go for some baits here. Shields are down, or not, shields are down, shields are still up, so going for Brave Bird there is a little risky, because they could just Dragon Breath me down, farm up a bunch of energy. And then my opponent does swap out here. At the same time, I swap out to my Drifloon. So I'm going to farm up a sizable amount of energy here. And then go for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will definitely KO. Icy Wind's not enough against a non-Shadow variant. But I have just enough juice to get to that Icy Wind against the Dino. Alright. So Chinchou leads, very solid for the most part because they're very strong against the backline. Now here's where it gets tricky. I've seen this a few times where you have a Chinchou in the lead and you have a Swinub in the back. That gets really dicey because Swinub is very strong against this team as well. And yeah, it's in those scenarios, G-Fist is pretty much your most reliable check. Ducklett's not terrible, but it gets a little tricky. And so here comes the Swinub, right? So you kind of need to go overtime here with a G-Fist, doing some extra damage with a Rock Slide, although debuffed at that point. Kind of just have to throw it to make this matchup a little bit easier, and then start throwing these Ball Beams and hope they don't shield. So at this point, the Swinub is quite low, and we simultaneously KO, which is nice. And now I'm going to bring my Drifloon in here. Drifloon with energy is very, very solid. Have to just hope it's not a Thunderbolt, and I make a no shield call there. Clear the debuff. I'm going to go for a bait here. Able to bait out the shield. And then now going for the Shadow Ball for a narrow victory against a very tough team comp. I actually forgot to include Swinub footage in the lead here. But against Swinub, I always go Muddy Water first after building Rock Slide. And then I usually go Rock Slide second and then Muddy Water again. If you get a debuff, it's very, very nice early on. Now, against G-Fist, a lot of opposing G-Fist will build up to an Earthquake and then throw Muddy Water. In my opinion, it's not the best strategy. If you don't have the Earthquake, just throw the Muddy Water right away. Because if you get a debuff early on, it changes the matchup completely, right? For people that build up to 2 Muddy Waters and then throw what might be an Earthquake to bait out shields, I get the thought process behind it. But if they land a nerf on you first, before you get to throw your moves, it doesn't matter, right? Like, you don't have the Earthquake to bait. You know, you're just baiting out a shield, but like, people are going to shield the Muddy Water anyway, a lot of times, if they're staying in that matchup, right? So you want to shield the first one before, and you want to get them off before you get debuffed. So me personally, I throw the Muddy Water right away. All right, so going for a bait here. That one did not pan out so well. I did have the energy for Rock Slide, so surprising my opponent actually did not shield. But now I'm just going to spam out some moves here, and then absorb the damage from this Chansey here, and then now I'm going to farm up as much energy as possible. This is definitely going to hurt, but not a ton actually. I guess I didn't want to build up to Hyper Beam, or maybe a single move, I don't know. But able to finish off the Dino and build up to a Brave Bird to finish off the Chansey. Alright, I did run into Mirror Team. So like I said, I talked about this team on my stream over a week ago actually. So maybe someone saw, maybe someone played a patron that was using the team, or maybe they came up with the team themselves as well, you know. But as you can see, I got debuffed on that first Muddy Water, which is unfortunate. They also snuck a Mudshot in, so they get to this third Muddy Water ahead of me, and a fourth one actually. Might have overtapped on my end there. So it puts me in a very tough spot. That first attack debuff was absolutely huge for that mirror. Didn't want to go down completely all my shields. I also didn't know this was a mirror matchup until, you know, just in a little bit right here. And I'm going to shield what definitely could be a Brave Bird. Really great play by my opponent to just grab my shield. I go for a nuke right here. It's a 50-50 call if they shield or not. Unfortunately, they didn't shield. I should have just built for another Brave Bird because I knew the Bubble Beam was going to KO anyway. So maybe that was just a better play, but they overfarmed there, knowing that I can't get to a Brave Bird in time. And yeah, they finish it off. So in that mirror matchup, if you can get that attack debuff first, obviously that is RNG. So you can't really control that, but if you are able to, that helps a ton in that mirror matchup. A lot of the matchups do rely quite a bit on the 50-50 calls with the baits and nukes, both when to throw and when to shield them, but that's kind of the nature of Little Jungle Cup anyway. So may the odds be in your favor. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, hit that notification bell to get alerted right when I post a new video, and I'll see y'all next time.